Eric Clapton's tribute to Bobby Whitlock came from a place far deeper than professional courtesy. It was a message born from decades of shared music, laughter, struggles, and the kind of camaraderie that only forms between musicians who've been through the fire together. When news broke that Whitlock had passed away at the age of 77 following a battle with cancer, Clapton took to social media with words that were understated yet heavy with meaning. Our dear friend Bobby Whitlock has passed away at 77. Our sincere condolences to Bobby's wife Coco and his family on this sad day. Rest in peace, Bobby. It wasn't long, it wasn't dressed up with grand language, but those who knew the history behind the friendship could feel everything between the lines. For Clapton, this loss is not just the passing of a fellow artist, it is the closing of a chapter in his own life. Derek and the Dominos, the band they built together alongside Carl Rattle and Jim Gordon, created one of the most celebrated rock albums in history, Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. Whitlock was not merely a sideman, he was a co-writer on some of the album's most enduring tracks, a vital creative voice whose soulful singing and keyboard playing gave the record its depth and emotional punch. Songs like Bell-Bottom Blues, Tell the Truth, and Why Does Love Got to Be So Sad were as much his as they were Clapton's, born from long hours in the studio, shared heartbreaks, and the mutual understanding of two musicians chasing an elusive sound. In remembering Whitlock, Clapton is likely flooded with images of those sessions, the late nights, the spontaneous jams, the feeling of knowing they were making something special, even if the world didn't immediately recognize it. Back then, Derek and the Dominos weren't a chart-topping band. Layla received mixed reviews upon its release in 1970, and sales were modest. But with time, the album grew into a classic, and Whitlock's contributions became impossible to ignore. His voice blended with Clapton's in ways that felt almost telepathic. His Hammond organ lines gave the songs their warmth and grit, and his songwriting tapped into the same deep well of emotion that made Clapton's guitar lines cry out with such intensity. Clapton's tribute also speaks to the man behind the music. Whitlock came from humble beginnings in Memphis, sometimes in the quieter corners of the music world. In later years, he became just as devoted to painting as to music, producing canvases that reflected his boundless creativity. His wife, Coco Carmel Whitlock, was both his partner in life and often in music, with the two performing and recording together well into the 2000s and 2010s. Their shared artistic life was a testament to the idea that the creative spark doesn't fade with time, it only changes shape. Clapton's words also carry the weight of being the last surviving member of Derek and the Dominos. Carl Rattle passed in 1980. Jim Gordon's life unraveled in tragic and well-documented ways. And now Whitlock is gone. For Clapton, there must be an acute sense of standing alone, with memories that only the original four could fully understand. Every performance of Layla from this point forward will carry an added layer of remembrance. Not just for a song, but for the people who made it possible. Tributes from fans around the world poured in as soon as Clapton's message was posted. Many thanked Whitlock for the music that had been the soundtrack to their youth. Others shared stories of meeting him in small venues or at art exhibits, recalling his warmth, his laughter, and his willingness to talk about the old days without a trace of arrogance. The comments revealed how far his influence stretched, not just to rock purists, but to anyone who valued music that came from a place of raw honesty. The timing of Whitlock's passing also seems to have stirred a deeper reflection in Clapton. In recent years, he has often spoken about the fragility of life, the fleeting nature of fame, and the importance of treasuring genuine human connections over accolades. This tribute fits into that philosophy. There is no long statement, no press release full of flowery praise, just a simple acknowledgement of loss and love. That brevity is perhaps the truest form of respect, letting the memories and music speak for themselves. Whitlock's wife Coco spoke of him as someone who had risen from poverty to create a beautiful life, and Clapton's own career arc resonates with that idea. Both men understood what it meant to take hardships and turn them into art. In their prime, they pushed each other creatively, feeding off one another's ideas and energy. In the decades since, they remained connected, not in the constant public eye, but in the enduring way that true friends do. At this moment, no details of Whitlock's funeral have been released. The family is likely choosing to grieve privately before opening the door to public remembrance. That silence leaves space for reflection. Fans revisit Layla, musicians cover Bell Bottom Blues in tribute. And Clapton himself likely sifts through old photographs, rehearsals and conversations, remembering the man not just as a bandmate, but as a brother in spirit. When the details do eventually, whose music touched so many. Until then, Clapton's message hangs in the air, gentle, understated, and deeply human. It is a reminder that sometimes the most powerful tributes are not grand speeches or elaborate gestures, but the quiet acknowledgement of love and loss. For those who know the history, it says everything that needs to be said, and for those who don't, it invites them to listen, to discover Bobby Whitlock's music, and to understand why Eric Clapton, a man who has played with some of the greatest musicians in history, would pause to mourn him so deeply. Whitlock's passing leaves a void in the world of music, but his influence will not fade. The songs he co-wrote, the harmonies he crafted, and the moments he shared with Clapton on studio are captured forever. For Clapton, and for all who loved Bobby Whitlock's work, those recordings are now more than music. They are memories alive with the sound of a friend who made life richer, more beautiful, and more soulful. Bobby Whitlock's life and career were marked by soaring creative triumphs, personal struggles, health challenges, and the kind of resilience that defines an artist whose passion refuses to fade. Born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1948, Whitlock grew up in a world where music was not just a pastime, but a way of life. His early exposure to gospel, rhythm and blues, and the raw energy of Southern soul shaped the musician he would become. In his teenage years, he became the first white artist signed to the legendary Stax Records, an unprecedented move at the time, where he cut his teeth working alongside some of the most important names in soul music. This period gave him a foundation not only in musicianship, but also in the emotional honesty that would later define his songwriting. His big break came when he joined Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, a loose and incredibly talented collective that included musicians like Leon Russell, Rita Coolidge, and Dave Mason. Whitlock's keyboard playing, strong voice, and ability to mesh with others' styles made him stand out in an already star-studded lineup. It was through this group that he met Eric Clapton, forming the bond that would lead to the creation of Derek and the Dominos in 1970. With Clapton, Carl Rattle, and Jim Gordon, Whitlock became part of one of the by the darker side of the rock and roll lifestyle. Substance abuse, egos, and personal conflicts eventually tore the group apart before